And when they come up, they grab a hold of us, and we have thoughts and feelings that precipitate actions that make us look like we are bad people. Now, Mark Prophet, he said, it's better that you are able to make a mistake than to be a robot, right? And not exercise your free will. He said, the path is not about being good goody, where you're up there and you do everything right and everybody's like, oh, and you rise up the ranks and you get mantles of whatever on you, and then you walk around telling everybody what's wrong with them, right? It literally is that we are here in a humble state, and it is hard on us to be here. Even just having ourselves jammed into this little vessel we call our physical body. Because when we pop out of this thing, we go, and those of us who are of angelic origin, we just go, and we get our old fluidity back. We become fluid again. And you feel these things unfolding, and you're like going, wow, that was one tight chrysalis. And so the other methodology for opening the veil on our cocoon here, and remember that this is literally, we are preoccupied with ourselves. Everything, what is so-and-so going to say because I got such and such, right? It's all about getting it so that we can get a recognition that is not something that we even want. It's a fallen angel overlay on us. You see, what happens is that we can have the attention of the entire world upon us, and it is a grain of value compared to all the sands of all the deserts of the world, right? To God's attention, right? Right? I mean, when Jesus goes out into the desert to pray and fast, and the devil comes onto him, and he says, "Hey, piece of cake, you can have it all. Fall down, worship me. You get all the, give you the kingdoms of the world, and you have all this cash, and you can remember what was her name, Bathsheba, Sheba. What was the so, he kind of dangled that, because, so here's Jesus in his previous incarnation as King David. He's like going, this guy's wife is, kind of hot. And so if I was to send this guy on a suicide mission, she would be a widow, and I could have her. People don't like this kind of stuff because it looks like I'm making fun of Jesus. But, right? Jesus' incarnation before he became Jesus was David. And David did tremendously good things, right? He was a great man, right? But one little corner of that cocoon had a little knot in it, and the echoes kept catching, right? And feeding back to him. And the next thing you know, he couldn't stop thinking about it, and he couldn't stop feeling the thing, and that he couldn't stop his whole biological response. And the next thing you know, he sent this woman's husband out on a suicide mission. He is killed, and what does David do? You guys know the story, don't you? What did David do? He takes her. Now, this is the incarnation just before coming Jesus. Or was there an Elisha? And there was, what was it? Apollonius or something like that as well. So the point here is that it's still pretty tight. It's still pretty tight. And we're in this place where it's really, we have to understand that every right thought, every right feeling, and every right action is eternal. It lives forever and ever and ever and ever and never ceases to exist. Right? Every right thought, every right feeling, and every right action is eternal. Every wrong thought, every wrong feeling, every wrong action is a malformation of God's energy. And whether we balance the karma or we go to the second death, that thing was never a reality in God in the first place. Never. So either we balance the karma of the thing, or it just simply disintegrates in the next great in-breath. But it is not real, no matter how much it's real to us. As Mark Prophet said, he said, evil is not real and its appearance has no power, but you better watch it because it'll kill you. Right? So what does he mean? Evil is not real and its appearance has no power, but if you don't watch out, it'll kill you. Well, it means that we have to be a little bit, shall we say, in a place where we're not living in a black and white, system of duality. And so the legitimate pathways, man, know thyself. You find your limitation. You thin that veil out to the place where the rose starts to unfold naturally. And then at a certain point, it thins enough that you can actually have these moments where you pop out. The veil, it rends. And in that moment, we say something to somebody that is so extraordinary that we have to go, oh my God, I better write that down. Because, I mean, who hasn't done this here? Where in just the right moment with just the right person, you say something that is mind-blowing, knocks not only their socks off, but your own. And you're like, wow, and you know that you of your human consciousness did not say it. You know that some part of you has showed up, and that some part of you got out of the way, and that just for a moment, your human ego and your carnal mind got out of the center, and the Christ potential of the soul of the person you're speaking to became the center. And your Christ self came and swept down and just touched the bride of Christ, their soul, which then their human personalities like going, whoa, that was really wild what you just said, and I'm just juggling those concepts. And the person goes away and they think, well, that was an interesting thing, and I felt, this presence of the Holy Spirit, and my soul was quickened by the thing. Then they forget about it, and about 2 or 3 weeks later, their soul has processed that engram of energy that you passed to them, and your soul has processed that engram of energy that because you were the instrument of that passing, and you mentally, from the human personality, have kind of forgot about the whole thing. The soul processes it, and it then wafts up into our mental body, and suddenly we have a realization, and it's no longer somebody told us. It's no longer I think. It's no longer a concept, right? It's no longer I know. It becomes I am. I am this understanding. I am this connection. And so that methodology has been used, and I was shown that we're going to need to be the man, the woman for all seasons, that we're going to need to be able to function off of these 3 patterns of union with God and enter into that Agni Yoga, the union with God through the fire of the 8th ray of the Holy Ghost. Right? That we have to enter into this place where we were told that the 8th ray is the ray of integration, that wherever the 8th ray goes, it is a seamless union. There's no seams. You can't go, oh, we just stuck that together and now, there's a union. No. When the 8th ray of integration comes, the things that were disparate, that were separate, are one, and there's no seams. There's no place where they were ever actually apart, because the 8th ray of the Holy Spirit reveals the eternal, right? And just simply removes the temporary and the superficial and the self-deception of it. Okay, so that's that. So our job is to become the man, woman for all seasons, and as Daniel was saying, that we're on this. We've basically incarnated during the World Series of an intergalactic event. Sounds like I'm going to get on my tinfoil hat and say, and so, but this is an intergalactic event. Planet Earth is a crossroads for all of these different evolutions coming together. And what we do here will set a domino off, either in the direction of another 15,000 years of darkness, and this is what Mother told us. We either go now or there'll be 15,000 years more of darkness. Or we set it off in the direction of light, and when the domino on planet Earth is tipped over towards the light, it will then go out through this galaxy, out through the solar system, out through this galaxy. There are 4 other galaxies beside ours that fell. We were told, the teachings have told us, that when Lucifer fell, there was 5 galaxies that fell with him. Okay, 5. So do you guys know how many galaxies there are in this universe? 100 billion galaxies. And so if you think about this, 5 galaxies out of that many is just a little pimple, a little sore. But to us, here in this tiny little sector of a tiny solar system, in a tiny galaxy, it's like just gigantic. But what I was shown was that God hasn't put us in some place where we're going to try and figure something out and we're a part of some weird experiment, but that we are God trying to realize it. That we are God trying to realize it. That there's no out there. It's all here. And we're trying to, God is trying to realize himself, herself, their selves, itself, through the most humble and most in the most densely packed place, which is the physical plane. Literally, it is through us that the Spirit of the Father comes and inseminates the presence of the mater. Our attention is inseminating. What do you guys know what the word insemination means? No. So inseminates means to basically impregnate. And so we're constantly impregnating matter with that crystal cord of spiritual light that comes down to us. And whatever attitude that we've got towards it, that's what is born in mater. And so our job is to basically get it so that as that thing descends, that we become a reality, a real tie to the Father, so that that which is born is God, not a reproduction of incarnation after incarnation of unreality. And basically the psychodrama of our inherited family system. Okay, so I know that we're coming up short here. So this is a legitimate pathway. The final pathway that I'm going to describe, because there's others, and that is that it is completely legitimate for an elder brother or sister to come and actually part the veil for us. It absolutely is legitimate. Now, we have to understand that elder brothers and sisters, as the ascended masters and sometimes unascended masters or yogis who are gurus and stuff, are wise enough to know that they don't part this thing on us, this veil of self-concern on us, before we can handle it. Okay? But this thing is always sort of in consort with the first one, which is man, know thyself. You find the limitation of who you are, and then you go, that's not me. I have free will. I am an extension of infinite potential. And this thing that, I've got conscious mother archetype and therefore, none of that. Or I'm a gray. Grays are gun crazy, right? That's one of the things, they're gun crazy. Or all grays drive fast. There was one, all grays have red trucks. That says a lot if you think about it. And so we are not a product of our past and our subconscious. We are actually an extension of this infinite potential of our superconscious self, that we move from the kama manas mind, which is the conscious mind, or the carnal mind, which is the conscious mind, which is dominated by the subconscious, to the Christ mind, which is the conscious mind that it literally is given the opportunity to superconscious solutions. There's a difference between the way the subconscious and the unconscious works. The subconscious and the superconscious works. The subconscious, when it's playing in your conscious mind, says you have to, or else you will look stupid. You will be humiliated. And so the subconscious basically tells our conscious mind, do it or else. Whereas the superconscious mind is like, here's the opportunity. I come as a still, quiet, small voice. And if you want to, there's a solution here. But I will not impose it upon you, because that takes your godhood. There's only one thing that makes God God, which is self-determination, free will. We were granted the greatest gift that exists, which is free will. And it's contained within the tiniest sort of homely thing, which is our human personality. On one hand, it's this petty little thing, and on the other hand, it's this gigantic thing it's the only thing that makes God God. Self-determination. Self-realization, self-choice to do or not. And so the superconscious mind never imposes. It gives you the opportunity, whereas the subconscious is like, and so you think about it, how often do we do things because, if we don't, we're going to look stupid, versus doing it because it's a part of our superconscious inspiration. It was shown to me that we had a whole world that, because of this self-concern and this cocoon of self-concern, thought about self, feeling about self, feeding back within this cloud, this mist, that the whole world. So here's God, Alpha and Omega, and Helios and Vesta, and whatever version of God you want. And there's this whole planet full of people, right? How do they want people to come to them in their communion? Right? If you were God, do you want people to come out of fear or out of love? Out of love. Do you know how many people, 6.8 billion almost now, actually go out of love versus going out of fear, right? And there's all these other things in between there. And so it is why the sponsoring master relationship is so essential, right? The sponsoring master relationship will give you this adjunct where you're working out your stuff, so you look at the limitation of yourself, so you can say, that's just bunk, right? This I looked at what my limitation says so I can get rid of it. This is the same as our psychology, the same as our astrology, same as all of these different things. It's a thing we look at so we can get rid of it. Because in the end, we have free will and nothing defines who we are, really. And certainly not my opinion of myself or of you, because only God has the full breadth of what's really going on. And so this is this thing where it's so very, very important for us to connect to the Master, to have it so that as we're working to open it from this side, they're working from that side to open it from that side, right? And so for those of us who have had near-death experience where we died, and I said this mostly sort of the jarheads that had this happen, where as a result of abrupt casting out of the egg of self in past lives, either through blunt force trauma, whack on the head, cannonball, landmine, spear, whatever, that knocks you out of your body really quick. It gives this sort of shimmering thing, and it allows for the people to pop out easier. Once you've been out of this body, it never quite closes up again. You have a sort of a conduit, right? And Danyan actually talked about that in his book, that once you've been out, I think he actually called it a culvert. A tube is formed, and you can sort of pop out. And so Danyan had a number of OBEs right after he had near-death experience, and then he died again. And so he's one of these guys that's NDE, OBE, NDE, OBE, NDE. And so, anyways, and it's absolutely true. And I think that this person who said, well, you had that experience because you're like Thomas, you have to have it shown to you, right? And I think that, some of it was a little bit aggressive, but some of it was obviously true too. And so this is the thing, is that I was shown that we need to come up with a methodology, and I mentioned this to Caroline a number of years ago. We were walking down the street in High River, Alberta, and I said, we got to come up with a way so that, because I'd had a couple pop-outs, and these two pop-outs, when I was 28, I popped out of my body the first time, and I was there just at the upper level of the astral plane, and there's a cloud deck, and that separates, shall we say, the planes, and as you get closer to it, there's this very sort of trembling, sort of almost thunder rattling sound, and so basically, I was surprised that some part of me said, "God help me," and then this angel swooped in and took me straight up through the cloud deck, just like that, and it was so fast that. Part of me was like, who said that? Well, I did. And what just happened? And now I'm up in this place, and I'm like going, oh, thank God. I'm out of that place, and I'm home again. Jiggity jig. And I was just like so happy. And so this intense, milky white, snowy white cloud comes, and I'm like going, oh, I know who that is. And this energy just washed up, started at my most densest part of my system, and washed up from my feet over my body until I was completely enveloped in this, what would appear to be a dense white cloud. And it was, of course, and I said, as it come over my heart, I said, "Mommy." That's what I said. I said, "Mommy." And Mommy just washed me and washed me and washed me, and I was in a state that that I can tell it 100 times and say it better each time, and it will never come close to what that experience of Mommy was. I mean, I can't tell you, and it's something that I only pray that one day each of you will have, so that you will never be alone again, so that you will never have it, so that whatever pain you have gets you into this place where you think that it may be all just whoever tells the best story is the winner, right? Because when that moment, when Mommy is there, and you are in this exalted bliss that is not even describable, it's ineffable. And so after a while, the intensity started to, because it's a bit blinding at the beginning, and I started to watch, and what she was doing was she was on our etheric double. We have sort of like hairs. You can see, for the people on the patch, I'm looking. I have a hairy leg, and so basically our etheric double is covered with these. They look like spatulas or egg flippers, and they're very tiny, and the entire etheric double is covered with this. So they come out, there's a stem like that, and then they go flat like that on the top, like an egg flipper. Now, wherever we have karma, right, our etheric double has this mucoid substance that sticks these little pans down, okay? And these little things, these little pans, are sending and receiving stations of consciousness. And literally, when they're stuck down, they can't send and receive anymore. Okay, and so I'm now in, what is that on the wash cycle where it's, the stuff's really dirty, so you have to do heavy duty wash. What? Extra rinse. I definitely needed extra rinse too, and so I'm like just like a washing machine, and Mommy is washing me, and I could see this stuff coming off this, and it really did look sort of like pine pitch, like this, or it looked like dried mucus, and as it was washing off, I'm starting to they start to stand up. If you've ever had like a woo and your hair stands on end, it's that same thing. And not only am I now out of the physical body and the tomb that it appeared to me to be like, but suddenly I'm having this opening of this other part of myself, that the sending and receiving stations that are all glued down in these various areas that made it so that I had a certain level of confinement and density in my ability to receive and send energy. It's being washed off. And so that happens, and I'm just absolutely begging. And I mean, I'm begging and I'm crying. And you would think that it's not possible because you're now in this heightened state of awareness, and you're actually, this thing actually occurred in the arupa level of the Christic plane, so it wasn't even in the etheric, it was up in this Christic plane. And you would think that because you're there in such an exalted place, you couldn't be a crybaby. But I was a crybaby, and I was like, please do not send me back into that thing. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go anymore. And so, and I was begging, and it was just like, rinse cycle is over, double rinse, boing, and I'm like going, and I'm back in my body, and I'm like, and I actually was. I just clenched my eyes and pretended I was still asleep and pretended I was there, and refused to admit that I was back in my body. And so a week later, I'm in that same situation. I pop out, and now I'm like going, it happened again. It's going to happen every week, and I'm going to be like fantastic, and I'm just going to be popping out, and I can get out of Cousin Ugly every time I want to. That's what I was calling my body, Cousin Ugly. And so I still have obviously some bad attitude about this, but hey, I'm a work in process. And so now I'm cocky, and I say, I realize I'm right at that underneath the cloud deck, and the thing is, thundering. And so instead of waiting for this voice, which was really my Holy Christ self, to say, oh God, help me, I go, Archangel Michael. And, and, and I've always identified that as myself, but this was before I found the teaching. And so it's why I don't tell the story so much, because there's some sort of odd things about it, right? That my experience of Archangel Michael is really sort of from my buddy Dan's Catholicism, because there's no other sort of reference for it. But it had to have been in there to be able to come out. But anyways, so I'm like, and sure enough, the angel sweeps in up through the cloud deck. And then this time, it's like a Gustave Doré painting, yeah, the what do they call it, a woodcut. And I'm like, whoa, what is this one? And I knew that this was an Atmic sort of thing, and I don't know how I knew that, but anyways, and so what happens is it's just and I always feel a little bit embarrassed talking about this, because I know that it was assembled in such a way that I could consciously wrap my mind around it, right? But I don't care, because to me, it's clouds, and there's choirs of angels and all these clouds, and there's a great big white light up in the middle, and all these angels are there. And as I come up through the cloud deck, these angels go, ah, 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 and all of these filaments that had just been cleansed off just goes, and I'm there, and I'm like literally, and these guys hold this note. They hold this note, and it just goes on, and every one of these little things that are on my etheric double are just basically, because some of them were turned and some of them were still kind of kinky, and they started to come into the same resonance field. They were being tuned to a single harmonic note, which I'm sorry to tell you guys that it's within our, I'm saying sorry to tell you because it sounds ridiculous, but it was high C. It was high C. It was, in the tone or the notes, it was high C. And I tried to do that just now, and you notice how my voice didn't sound so good. Well, it actually was what happened when I was out in my OBE in this situation with these angels singing, that I decided that I would start to sing too, and I sang just like I just did, right? And so as I'm trying to hit this note with my own conscious voice, and I'm feeling this tuning of these pans, these little filaments all over my body, and you have to understand that there's a simultaneous event occurring where you're being taught all of this stuff. So there's a conscious sort of knowing at a cognitive level, then there's a soul training that's occurring. So I'm making it sound like it's a linear experience, but it's a very sort of spherical, rounded thing. And the soul training at that time was that many would lose their heads in those days, and that those who will keep their heads in those days, meaning their attunement, will be as islands of sanctuary unto the multitude. And I was absolutely sure that was a scripture, and I've said it for years. And anyways, and so the point here is that those who keep those who keep their head in those days shall be as islands of sanctuary unto the multitude, and that's where we're all trying to go. And so anyways, and so the next thing you know, I'm trying to make the same note with my physical, with my personal volition. And as I'm doing it, it sounded as flat and off as just where I was trying to do it there, mimicking it. But a funny thing happened was that suddenly playing in my mind was, we have a place down at the lake, up at the lake, I guess is the way to say it. And it's actually my aunt's place, an aunt and uncle's place. And this was many years ago. And there was this older lady who, her husband had died, and she was a person who sang. She was a singer, and she's a big, large lady, and her time was during World War II, and she had this little Chihuahua, and she would dress the Chihuahua up with this ruffles around its neck and a little clown hat and a little clown suit, and she would have her and her dog would perform, and so she would go, "Bring back the boys," and all of this songs from World War II, and the little Chihuahua, he could walk on his back feet, and he would literally go, "Arr, arr, 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 arr," and he would sing with her, right? And as I started to sing with the angels, it popped into my mind so very solidly that I was the Chihuahua. And it put me back in my body, just like that. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. I mean, I just got into the Chihuahua visualization. Anyways, and, and so what happens is that we're in a situation where concentration, meditation, contemplation, concentration is power, meditation is wisdom, and contemplation is love. Concentration is where you focus your energy. Meditation is where you understand what it is that you're choosing to be. And then contemplation is becoming that through an act of love. And I was shown that we're coming to a place where we're going to have to start to have it so that we are believers because of experience, rather than it just simply makes sense to us. And it doesn't mean that we're all going to have to be Thomases, that we have to have put our fingers in the holes before we're going to believe that Jesus is back. But there is a power in this thing. And so when Gautama, and this is not written down anywhere, actually there was this adept in what do you call him, Celanese adept. Anyways, so this is why I don't talk about this stuff, because it's a little bit odd. But you see, Gautama, he had, when he seen this dead body, it shocked his cocoon, and it opened up, and he popped out, right? He popped out, and when he popped out, he seen that he had only so much time before that thing was going to close again. And so he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I'm going to be getting married soon. I got this stuff happening. And so then, boing, it closes on him, right? And so next thing he's married. Next thing you know, his wife is giving birth. And so what did Gautama name his son? Which means? Means fetter. Which means ball and chain. He named his son Ball and Chain. Now, when the Brahmin priests got a hold, because they didn't want Buddhism, right? So all they had to do was say, in Hinduism, we are very family oriented and we honor the family, we look after the family. And look at what this guy did, right? He left his wife with an infant. The old king got older and older and more decrepit and couldn't keep back the other Kshatriya families, which is, a warrior clan, couldn't keep them back. And literally not long after Buddha had received his enlightenment, he got word that his father's kingdom was overran by another Kshatriya king, and the whole works, all these people killed, all these people were enslaved, and his wife become a concubine, and his son a eunuch, and all of that stuff. And, it was said that the Buddha was, even though he was enlightened, it wasn't a happy day for him. And so, why would the Buddha leave his wife and infant baby? Why would he call his son fetter, ball and chain? Well, because when this thing opens up and you step out of this thing, you have literally a different set of responsibilities. You are now responsible for every person on planet Earth who could come home. There's some people who are not coming home. There's some people not coming home. And the prophecy that was given at Crowpatrick, that Mother gave this prophecy at Crowpatrick, which is, Crow means mountain or rock, and it was where St. Patrick had his moment of come to Jesus, and or it was actually Jesus come to him. Anyways, and so the prophecy says that 12 will awaken, and those 12 will awaken the 144,000. And the 144,000 awakening will awaken the children of God. And the children of God, in their zeal, right, will literally bestow threefold flames on fallen angels, mechanization man, right? And you know, that seems impossible. But this is where we're at, is that we as older souls, the mature sons and daughters of God, are simply trigger pullers. And we have to get ourselves in such a way that we're going to be able to not have it so that the children of God have to morph to our particular psychodynamic before they can get our message. But we have to become facile. We have to become flexible. We have to become like spring steel, where we will not literally be broken in our bending or lose the center of who we are in that bending. Right? And so I found it very interesting that the victory on planet Earth, it will be done by the children of God, because they believe without having to have it all proven like the older souls. And I can't remember what dictation that was, but it said, you know, there are all these younger souls that have basically ascended. They've gone through the little ivory gate, and here you guys are, all you old potentates, was the word that was used. He said, you know, you're these big birds, and this is the time when the whole winds of the Holy Spirit are strong enough that you can actually take to the air, and it's time. And you know, literally, our job is to, sorry? Endure to the end. Our job is to end up in this place where we are able to be facile enough, flexible enough, without losing who we really are.